right, truth be told, I drove around for about an hour trying to find a spot that was protected from the wind. I am at Rockaway. The colors are just beautiful today. So here's the scene I'm working with. I am gonna move things around a little bit, but I'm gonna try to stay pretty true to what I'm seeing here. My usual limited palette: titanium white, cadmium yellow medium, burnt sienna, alizarin crimson, ultramarine blue, and phthalo blue green shade. I'll be using a natural bristle flat number 6. I'll be using liquid original as my medium, and I've got odorless mineral spirits in a brush washer. And I'll be painting on a 12 by 16 inch gessoed panel. All right, sketching in burnt sienna, I've just thinned with odorless mineral spirits. I want to keep the horizon kind of high because I want to include some of the shoreline, maybe like that. Have the rocks maybe come out sort of like this. And there's kind of a big rock over here like that. And then this shoreline goes like this sort of. Once the shapes are established, then I can look for more specific contours in the shapes. I think I want the shoreline to sort of curve around like this. Okay, and I'm gonna change the shape of these rocks a bit. In reality, they run off the top like that, but I don't like that as much. I like the idea of having them maybe coming out like this, but not running off of the top of the panel. There's some shadow shapes in the rocks. I'm just squinting at the scene, trying to simplify those shapes. I wanna work quickly on this painting as usual. Try to keep it to about an hour. Starting with my darkest dark. This is a mixture of ultramarine blue and burnt sienna. I've got a touch of alizarin crimson in here as well. And I've thinned a bit with liquid. This thinner paint goes on fast. I also like that it allows me to maintain transparency. As I've talked about before, I feel like transparent darks make for a more luminous painting. So the mixture of ultramarine blue and burnt sienna is very close to a black color. All right, in this portion here, I'm obviously fabricating. I'm just using the scenery as raw materials here. I may have to make some changes to these shapes, but we'll see. All right, so I'm checking angles by holding up my brush and then comparing it to my panel. And it looks like I can come down a little bit lower over here, maybe something like that. All right, for the red portion of the rocks, I'm using burnt sienna, cadmium yellow medium, and a touch of alizarin crimson. I've also dragged in some of my dark mixture to sort of gray it down a bit, trying to keep this red mixture to maybe a mid-tone value and just an approximate color. Some red out here as well. And I don't mind if some of the dark mixture gets mixed in. I'll be adjusting these colors as the painting develops, but I just want to get something on the canvas really quickly, or on the panel really quickly. Trying to keep this layer of paint transparent as well. Right down here, there's some reddish kind of seaweed. I'll include that. Sometimes I'll have the water run off the edge of the panel, but I like the idea of kind of keeping the water contained within the picture frame. All right, for the sky, I'm starting with a mixture of titanium white and ultramarine blue. And in order to determine the value of the sky, I'm comparing it to the value of the white water. And I want the white water to stand out as the lightest light in the painting. I am seeing some other colors in the sky, purple, and then some warmer areas, but for now, again, just trying to get an approximate color. For the water mixture, I'm starting with ultramarine blue, phthalo blue green shade, a touch of cadmium yellow medium, and titanium white. All right, I'm gonna try to keep the brushwork spontaneous. And also I wanna start leaving areas of white water. So there's some white water around in here. All right, hopefully the wind isn't too noisy. It is getting really windy out here. Be honest, my easel blew over once already. It was actually while I was setting up. I don't know if you can see, but there are white caps forming out here. I know I have limited time here because it's gonna get really windy. All right, added cadmium yellow medium to the mix. This area in here where the water gets shallow has got more yellow in it. There's actually some yellow out in the distance as well around here, so I'll add that in. All right, I've got a purplish gray mixture here. Just using colors that were already on the palette. All right, this shoreline is a little bit too straight. I think I want to have it be more curved, and actually maybe even run off the bottom. Something like that. I'll extend this green mixture down like this. Something like that. I think I like that better because I like this area in here. There's a lot of nice colors, so I don't want to raise the water line up too much and reduce it too much. All right, mixing a color for the sand here using ultramarine blue, burnt sienna, and a bit of cadmium yellow medium. I've also mixed in a little titanium white. This is sort of a yellow ochre color. This is one of the colors that I thought I would miss the most when I went to my limited palette. But it turns out that it's not that difficult to mix. All right, there's quite a bit of guano on the top of this rock, but for now I'm just gonna use a lighter version of the orange to start off. Maybe add some of that also on these rocks out here. This will tone down the orange a bit. It was a little bit too saturated. Okay, I've mixed up another dark mixture here using ultramarine blue and burnt sienna. Just starting to reinforce some of these dark shapes. And I don't mind if I drag some of the reddish color into the mix. I want to try to maintain transparency, which is looking like it's going to be kind of a challenge, but I'm going to do the best I can. One of the ways of maintaining transparency is to keep the paint thin and scrub like this. Okay, there's some purple tones right along the water line here where the sand is wet, and I'm using ultramarine blue and alizarin crimson, and I'm paying attention to the value. The value is dark compared to the white water, so I'm keeping it about a mid-tone value. All right, this sand in here is lighter, so I've mixed some titanium white and a bit of cadmium yellow medium into my sand mixture, and I'm trying to keep the brush loaded. All right, for the dark portions of the seaweed, I've got alizarin crimson, ultramarine blue, and some burnt sienna. All right, and right here, there's a rock that sticks up, kind of like that. And then there are a few rocks out in the water as well. This rock actually comes down lower, something like that. And I want to make sure that this shoreline is irregular. All right, I've got a dark mixture here of ultramarine blue and alizarin crimson, and I'm restating the darkest darks, and some of these darkest darks will not be transparent. At this point, I'm looking for little shifts in the shapes of the rocks. Just added a little more red to the mix here in this area. I step back and this dark mixture is just looking too dark, too heavy. I've mixed in a bit of purple. Purple mixture is ultramarine blue and alizarin crimson. I'm going to start adjusting the color of the rocks here. I'm seeing more red in the mix, so I've added some alizarin. And this value may be a bit light. That's all right, I can always darken it up. Question is, am I having fun? To be honest, I'm having fun now that that wind seems to have died down a bit. That was creating big problems. We don't have bugs here in California very much when plein air painting, which is really nice. but the wind can be a real challenge. There's some areas of reddish rock out here. Okay, and there's some areas of red in here as well. And then some more rust tones up here, so I've added some burnt sienna to whatever the mix is I've got. I am really on the fly here, kind of out of control. It's all right. I feel like the sky is too dark because it needs to be light behind this bit of land. So I'm going to start by adding some titanium white and ultramarine to the mix. Same mix as I was using before, but lighter. Just try to play around with the value until it looks like I'm getting an accurate representation. So that relationship I think is a little better right there. And I've added a little more ultramarine to the mix that's up higher in the sky. All right, so it's hard to film this, but I've got a straight edge and I just struck a line for the horizon. Once I've got the line established, then I can work right up to the line without crossing over and messing it up. I did drag the brush to create a soft edge because there is some moisture in the atmosphere. I want to make sure that I get some of these sky reflections into the water. There's a bunch of ultramarine or purplish sky reflections in the water. All right, I am going to strengthen the green tones in the water in the foreground here. Something like that. There's some darker areas that almost look like purple. I think a lot of it is submerged seaweed. So I want to add that in as well. I'm using a mixture of ultramarine and burnt sienna. Still using the number 6. Sometimes this brush is a little uncomfortable just because it's not very precision or precise, but that's what I want. All right, I'm adding little bits of green up along the top of these cliffs. I want to leave some of the burnt sienna sketch showing through. And there's a little bit of green on the slope here. Not sure how I'm gonna like this, but try it out. All right, squinting at the scene now and looking for pops of light on the top of some rocks. All right, adding a bit of light to the top of this seaweed here. And here we got more dark green. All right, so here's what I finished up with. I spent a little over an hour on this painting. As I mentioned, I was pushing saturation to try to create a convincing feeling of light. Most of these colors, in particular on the cliffs here and in the water, were not quite as saturated and not as warm in color. But by pushing the warmth, it does create a feeling of light. And I feel like it also helps to recreate the lived experience of standing in front of the scene. If I kept these colors true to what I was seeing, I don't feel like the painting would have as much impact. And in fact, in previous paintings, when I've done that, I get the painting home and it seems lifeless and it doesn't recreate the lived experience of standing in front of the scene. So that's one thing we're able to do as painters, is to exaggerate, to recreate the lived experience. All right, so once again, the limited palette comes through. I had no problem with saturation. In fact, most of the colors, even the most saturated colors in this painting, were grayed down quite a bit. So I had a lot of headroom. If I wanted more saturation, that wouldn't have been a problem. Anyway, hope you guys enjoyed this video. Let me know what you think in the comments. If you'd like to see some extra videos and help support the channel, there's a Patreon link down below. It's a Patreon support that helps keep me making these videos, and it's much appreciated. So if you're interested, check it out. Other than that, stay creative, and I'll see you guys in the next video.